Hello and welcome back to another Pickled Unscripted. As always, I have Matt the Pickled Dragon with me, and I'm Dracoya. And today we have a little rant that we'd like to go on, right, Matt?
Yeah, yeah. It's it's a rant, but it's also a bit of history, and it's coming from the heart. And I had to inebriate myself a little bit to get to this point, But uh, it is a bit of a rant, a little bit about the Gary ordeal, and kind of responding to some people who were like, why do you care so much? And there are some people out there who just seem to be absolutely humorless. Like they could look at a sarcasm laden rant of Gary's and say, well, he means every word of it, you know. But it's if we set that aside for a moment, and what I wanted to really talk about was why I care so much.
Why
Um,
we both care so much. You go
yeah,
first.
yeah. So like, for me, if you rewind to the late 70s, I struggled in school early on, and I was diagnosed with all these learning disabilities, dyslexia and all this stuff, and it caused many problems for me over the early years. And of course, in those days, there weren't really any programs for kids, or if they were highly
Garbage.
ineffectual, you know. And so when my brother started bringing home these books, Dungeons and Dragons books from his friend's house, I was like, well, what was that? And one of the things I had a real hard time with it was reading. And, um, and, you just can't get inspired to try real hard on Dick and Jane books, right? And that's literally what you had in those days. It was like them trying to like get you to read using these boring texts. But there were these books with all of this amazing artwork in it, and that's really what drew me in first was the incredible artwork. Um, and my parents were like, they noticed I was looking through these books every day, and my brother was playing the game with me, and they finally said, if we will buy you anything D&D if you just sit down and read it and learn the rules. I remember my first experience as a DM running for my brother, and I remember how, like, my brother has always been a very supportive person, even when we were young kids, which is really unusual. A lot of times there's a lot, like, brothers will rough and tumble and whatnot. But even in those days, he was very supportive. But he saw, like, I would try to read like a box text, for example, and I would really struggle, and he would like deflect from the other players and take over and whatnot. But it finally came to the point where my parents were just buying me all this D&D stuff, book after book and miniatures and whatnot. Anything I wanted, as long as I would read it. And I battled my way through the learning disabilities, and not entirely via gaming, granted, but it was a huge, huge part of overcoming those learning disabilities. And so when I say, somebody making like an unfounded or out of context attack on the creators of this game, I do take it personally. Um, I don't, when I look at these games, I don't see the things that these people see, obviously. Um, but I'm a person that believes that actions are far more important than words. You could say, like, there are people that run their mouth all day long, um, but when the rubber meets the road, either they do something completely different or don't do what they say they were going to do, and And that is more meaningful than anything they said,
Right.
which is why I have very little respect for politicians, because they say a lot of things. They say lots of things.
See, one of the
And
things, go on.
oh, I was just going to say, but they don't accomplish much. And I think that is the most telling aspect of a person's life, is the actions they make in life. And when you look at the things that Gary actually did in life, he hired lots of women. Um, he hired Lorraine Williams, probably the worst mistake of his life at the time, because she backstabbed him and stole the company from him.
Not
But
because she was a woman.
not because she was a woman, for sure. But when he needed help running TSR, he didn't go find a dude. He found the best person he thought was right for the job, and it was her. He thought she
Right.
was the best for the job.
Well, and see, this is my problem with it is, as a woman in today's world, having faced so much sex. I mean, screw it. Last week I was out with a friend and this freaking bartender kept looking at my male friend when I was trying to order a margarita. And I mean, it was an obvious like sexist encounter. I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Stuff like this happens all the time to women. And I think it's really important to not bash someone who's not actually at fault. He hasn't done anything that has led me to believe that he is a chauvinistic, misogynistic pig. But there's lots of people in this world that are, and morally, I'm sorry, I just feel like I have to stand up for the people that I think actually did some good for women. I love Dungeons and Dragons, and for me, it really changed my life a few years ago. I got into it later in the game, but I mean, I think it's made such an impact on my life that I'm hoping to expand Dracoya at some point to start playing Dungeons and Dragons on a deeper, more therapeutic and counseling level role, because I really do think it helps a lot of different people. Yeah.
Yeah. And my son, for example, he's autistic, and he had a really difficult time with social interactions via Asperger's. And we spent many weeks, hours playing Dungeons and Dragons with him. And he eventually became a DM himself. He ran games at game stores and whatnot. But it definitely made a difference. There is an immense amount of value in role play. Um,
And
role
isn't it so
playing.
much easier when your mind works that way? It's so much easier to look at a social interaction and say, oh, well, I'm going to try and do a charisma check or a deception roll, like let me think of it like let me think of these social interactions in that way instead of this is an intimidating, I don't understand the rules type of a situation.
Yeah.
Does
And
that
so,
make sense?
I would love to hear an example of an action taken by Gary where that may have been a sexist act. But uh, you know, people run their mouths all the time. And but what they do is what really matters. And so far I haven't seen in text or in action anything that would label him some raving misogynist who wants to. I mean, if you look up the definition of a misogynist, somebody that wants to discriminate or keep women down in social classes and in
There's a
professional.
lot of them out there, but he's not one of them, guys.
I don't think so. And I think another place you can see another place you can see this in action is in his world of Greyhawk. In the world of Greyhawk, he actually wrote that Greyhawk was largely a egalitarian society, right? Uh,
Mhm.
except for one case in a place called Hardby, where and I'm quoting here. Here, I'll share it. I'll even share it. I'll just
Okay.
read the whole damn thing
Yeah.
because that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Let's do that.
So this is from one of his Gourd the Road books. Women were the rulers there. They were quite bold, often beautiful, and regarded men as only a little lower than the least of females. This was an oddity, for in general, women everywhere in Eastern Flaness were held as men's equals in all aspects except brute force. But in Hardby, the Amazonian soldiers and guards to the despotics were as burly and muscular as dock workers, and even someone as large as the gigantic barbarian would have had a hard time overpowering one of them, let alone a whole city of such warriors. So, I mean, please, if we are genuinely if we're genuinely talking about a misogynist, are they gonna like? I mean, there's so much more evidence out there that he respected women than he, uh, turned them out of job positions or only kept them in the secretarial pool or I'm not seeing it. So
Right.
we are going to have one more talk about this before we put it to bed. But it's going to be a little bit of a women's panel where they get to like look at some examples of things and they get to decide, Dracoya being one of them. And we'll have that hopefully as soon as we can. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Until next time, guys, comment, like, subscribe, comment down below. Let us know what you think. Are we crazy? Do you stand with us? Yeah. Comment, like, subscribe, come back and have another round on us.
Right on.